growing up, my parents bought a photograph of the old War Road Memorial Arena, and it was like a old wooden barn, and it was gorgeous. It wasn't your typical focus of like what you would shoot, but the character came out in the photo. It was just something that really stood out to me. And that kind of sparked the idea to photograph all the old rinks I grew up playing in.
How are you doing?
Good. So we're gonna go to University of Minnesota first, and then we're gonna shoot the men's rink, and then we're gonna shoot the women's rink after.
Okay.
My dad has been a lot of help with the project. He's kind of been my chauffeur through all the small towns in Minnesota. No video today, just photos.
What do you want me to do with Vern?
Make sure he just stays alive. People, like when you tell them what you're doing and you're capturing their home arenas, everybody gets really excited about it. I didn't know what the response would be. I thought maybe it was going to be for an audience of one and me. And it's been pretty cool to see how people have responded to it. The project started about 15 years ago. I was living out west and I came back to Minnesota to get sober and started working with a guy who was a really talented photographer, and I pitched him the idea. He's from New Jersey and he thought the idea was horrible. He's like, that's not a good idea. Nah. Hockey rinks. Eventually I convinced him, and we got in our car, did about a 6-day shoot, and we just went all across northwestern Minnesota. You just grow up watching the Gophers, and you wanted to play for the Gophers, and this is kind of like, the Minnesota mecca for like college hockey. And Mariucci, there's just something about it, the tradition and the history. It's pretty cool to be able to go here and shoot this rink and capture this rink. I'll see you a little bit. Whatever I'm shooting, I always just get a little nervous. You want to just portray these places correctly, That's kind of like the big thing. The happiest times in my life were always like hanging out with all my friends in these arenas, going to games, getting ready for games in the locker room. I love coming in and just the crispness of the air, the sounds, the smells, the lighting. There's a level of nostalgia. It just kind of brings you back. One thing you wouldn't think of for this stuff is how do you not get locked onto the ice? I almost didn't get off the sheet of ice in Wyndham. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get onto the ice. There's been a lot of challenges with this project. One of the biggest things was the person I started this project with went on a crack smoking binge. And he sold the camera with all the photos on it that we had shot 20 rinks on, straight up for crack cocaine. And my buddy had to buy the camera from the dealer with all the photos on it. He sobered up, and we talked about like picking up the project again, and we just kept misfiring. You're hustling and you're doing all sorts of projects, and you're saying yes to everything, and what you're really passionate about is getting put on the back burner. At what point do you want to pick it back up and actually just see it through? And that moment came to me when I was like creative rock bottom, when I was shooting weddings while going through a divorce. I was like, okay, if this isn't a sign that you need to pick up what you want to do, then forever hold your peace. Like this is Olympic size ice, so it's huge ice all the way around. And then just like the scale of this place is pretty incredible.
Oh, he was an intense player. He played hard. Now he's on the ice and he's kind of, he's finding all these rich stories, it's classic rinks and really a rich history in Minnesota.
You've run this place for how long?
23 years.
23 years.
Yep.
Going into these rinks, you interact a lot of the times with the rink managers, and the rink managers are just a great source of information.
In the early 90s, we were able to fund and build the new Mariucci Arena. We went from 7,000 seats to 10,000, and 26 years into it, and we're still having a lot of fun.
It's funny that you started talking about like there's not a bad seat in the house. Like one of my favorite things about all the old rinks are the obstructed views. Something I've learned through this project, you go in and out of these rinks, and a few times you're like, hey, that looks familiar. And you find out they use the same blueprint for multiple rinks. They use the same blueprint from New Hope to Cottage Grove, but then you go up to Two Harbors and Silver Bay are exactly the same rinks. They're just different color schemes, and just the way that they decorate is a little bit different. One thing I did learn along the way was how the WPA was involved with funding and building these rinks in northwestern Minnesota. And they're some of my favorite rinks, and they're some of the coolest rinks you'll come across. Thief River Falls and Roseau, and some of those old cool barns out there were built through the WPA. They weren't just building roads, they were putting like all the craftsmen to work building hockey rinks. You go from rink to rink and town to town, and everybody you talk to, they get really excited about their community and their community rink. They're just willing to open up the doors and turn you loose because they're really proud of these places and they want them to be captured. From going from next door to here, it's pretty wild, just the spectrum. These arenas are more than just ice arenas. From like October to maybe April, they're filled with ice, but the rest of the times they're pretty wide open. And so when they don't have ice in, it's really interesting how they use these places. I'm from Grand Rapids, and we had our prom grand march in the arena. I was at a wedding reception in the hockey arena. Graduation is in the hockey arena. It's more than just an ice arena. It's a focal point for the community. Diving into this personal project and seeing it through. It's brought a level of joy and happiness, and I haven't always found that in recovery. The project started out as just a simple idea to take photographs of hockey rinks. Along the way, it's allowed me to reconnect with my dad. It's been a really good father-son bonding experience. It's allowed me to take pride in a project that I really want to see through. It's just kind of fun that I'm finding that joy again. It's something that I love.